Have you ever wondered what makes a person truly great? Is it intelligence or imagination? Is it luck or persistence? What if I told you the man who changed the way we see the entire universe was once a quiet boy, misunderstood, doubted, even called slow? This, my friend, is the incredible, real-life Albert Einstein story. And today, through this inspiring tale, you'll learn English through story and grow your English listening practice naturally as we travel through time following the heart and mind of a genius. So, take a deep breath, relax your mind, and listen closely. Because this story is not just about science. It's about courage, curiosity, and believing in yourself, even when the world doesn't. It was March 14, 1879. The small German city of Ulm was calm and quiet when a baby boy was born to Hermann and Pauline Einstein. No one could have guessed that this baby would one day become a name known all over the world. His name? Albert Einstein. But little Albert wasn't like other children. He didn't talk early. He didn't run around making noise. In fact, he spoke his first words much later than most children do. His parents grew worried. "Something's not right," his mother whispered. But his father would smile gently and say, "Give him time. He's thinking." And that, perhaps, was true. Einstein wasn't silent because he didn't understand. He was silent because he was observing. He was watching the world with deep, endless curiosity. One day, his father handed him a small compass. It was shiny, silver, and ordinary, but to young Albert, it was magic. He turned it, tilted it, moved it, and yet the needle always pointed in the same direction. He couldn't see anything making it move. No wind, no string, no push. Why does it do that? He wondered. That simple moment changed his life forever. It was his first experience with the invisible, the unseen forces of nature that ruled the universe. He didn't know it then, but that question would lead him toward the heart of physics itself. Even as a child, he loved to think, not memorize. He would sit by the window, lost in thought, while everyone else recited lessons. He didn't like rules. He didn't like being told what to believe. He wanted to find out for himself. Albert grew up in Munich, and school was never easy for him. His teachers preferred strict discipline, memorization, and silence. But Albert's mind didn't work that way. He liked questions, not answers. He liked imagination, not repetition. When a teacher asked him to learn something by heart, he asked, "Why should I memorize what I can read in a book?" To them, he seemed arrogant. To him, they seemed blind. One teacher told him, "Einstein, you will never amount to anything." Those words, cold and cruel, stuck in his mind, but they didn't break him. They became fuel. He started reading advanced science books at home. He read about light, energy, magnetism, and time, subjects far beyond his age. He fell in love with mathematics and the mysteries of the universe. But life wasn't kind. His family faced financial troubles and had to move to Italy, while Albert stayed behind in Germany to finish school. He was lonely, homesick, and frustrated by a system that didn't understand him. So, one day, he made a bold decision. He walked out of school. He quit school before graduation. He later said, "The monotony of school destroyed the joy of curiosity." And maybe he was right, because sometimes walking away from what limits you is the only way to discover what frees you.
After leaving Germany, Einstein reunited with his family in Italy, and soon he decided to apply to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. He was only 16, full of ideas, but not ready for the entrance exam. He failed. But failure didn't stop him. He studied hard, tried again, and this time he passed. He was finally free to study what he loved, physics and mathematics. In Zurich, he found peace. The teachers were kinder, the atmosphere more open. He could finally think freely. Yet, he was not the perfect student. He skipped classes that bored him. He spent nights in cafes, reading books by scientists and philosophers, dreaming about light, space, and time. While others chased grades, he chased questions. During these years, Einstein also met a young woman named Mileva Maric. Intelligent, strong, and passionate about science. They shared dreams, debates, and long nights of calculations. Eventually, they fell in love. He graduated, but life once again threw him a challenge. No university wanted to hire him. He sent applications everywhere, but doors stayed closed. He was broke, married and jobless, with a baby on the way. Yet even in those dark days, he never lost his curiosity. He said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." And that passion soon opened a new door, a job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. Albert Einstein was now a third-class technical expert at the patent office. Every day, he read and stamped documents about new inventions, clocks, machines, motors. It was simple, repetitive work. But in his mind, the universe was alive. He would sit at his desk, surrounded by papers, and suddenly drift into deep thought. What if light doesn't behave the way we think it does? What if time itself depends on how fast we move? What if everything we know is only part of the truth? In those quiet hours, something incredible was happening. The man the world had once called lazy was preparing to revolutionize science. He wrote ideas on scraps of paper. He discussed theories with a small group of friends in a cafe. They called themselves the Olympia Academy. And in 1905, when he was just 26 years old, he published 4 scientific papers that changed the world forever. That year became known as Einstein's Miracle Year. The year was 1905. A young man in a modest apartment, surrounded by books, coffee stains, and restless dreams, was about to change everything we knew about the universe. That young man was Albert Einstein. He had no laboratory, no team of assistants, no fancy university position, just a desk, a pen, and an unstoppable imagination. In that single year, Einstein wrote 4 papers, each on so revolutionary they would rewrite the laws of physics forever. People later called it his annus mirabilis, his miracle year. The first paper explained how light could behave like both a wave and a particle, an idea that later earned him the Nobel Prize. It introduced the concept of photons, tiny packets of light energy. The second paper explored the invisible dance of atoms, known as Brownian motion, proving once and for all that atoms actually existed. The third paper questioned the very nature of space and time. He proposed something unthinkable, that time could slow down or speed up depending on how fast you were moving. He called it the special theory of relativity. And finally, the fourth paper, the most famous of them all, introduced an equation that would become eternal. E equals mc squared.
Energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. In that simple formula, he revealed that matter and energy are 2 forms of the same thing, that everything in the universe is connected, alive, and dynamic. Imagine that, A man working in a small patent office, turning the world of science upside down, with ideas written on scrap paper. He didn't have wealth, he didn't have fame, but he had vision. This is what makes the Albert Einstein story so powerful. It reminds us that greatness doesn't come from privilege. It comes from perseverance, imagination, and the courage to think differently. At first, very few people understood what Einstein had done. His theories were complex, his mathematics bold, and his conclusions challenged everything science had believed for centuries. But slowly, the world began to realize this was no ordinary man. Other scientists tested his ideas. At first, they doubted. Then, they marveled. In 1915, Einstein presented his greatest masterpiece, the general theory of relativity. He claimed that gravity wasn't really a force pulling objects down as Isaac Newton had described. Instead, he said, gravity is the bending of space and time caused by massive objects like stars and planets. He explained it beautifully. Space tells matter how to move, and matter tells space how to curve. To prove it, he predicted that light from distant stars would bend as it passed near the sun, something that could only be tested during a solar eclipse. And so, in 1919, scientists around the world held their breath as they observed the sky. When the results came in, Einstein was right. His theory was confirmed. The next morning, newspapers across the globe shouted the news. Revolution in science, new theory of the universe, Newton overthrown. And the name Albert Einstein became a symbol of genius. Overnight, he became one of the most famous men on Earth. Crowds waited outside his lectures. Photographers followed him through the streets. Journalists begged for interviews. But fame didn't change him. He remained humble, often saying, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." Behind the equations and discoveries, there was still a man, a father, a husband, a dreamer. Einstein's personal life, however, was complicated. His marriage to Mileva Maric began to fall apart under the weight of fame and work. They eventually separated, though he continued to support his children with love and care. Despite his personal struggles, his compassion for others never faded. He cared deeply for peace, equality, and education. He believed that science should serve humanity, not destroy it. He often said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather a man of value." He refused luxury and formality. He wore simple clothes, often forgot to wear socks, and walked to work lost in thought, mumbling equations under his breath. He never owned fancy things. His wealth was in his ideas. That's what makes this Learn English Through Story experience so relatable. Einstein wasn't born extraordinary. He became extraordinary by never giving up on curiosity. So as you continue your English listening practice with this story, remember, even the greatest minds faced doubt, rejection, and failure, but they kept going. As the years passed, Einstein became more than a scientist. He became a symbol of conscience. He spoke out against war, racism, and injustice. He saw how science could be used for good or for destruction. When Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany, Einstein, who was Jewish, knew his life was in danger. He left his homeland, never to return.
He found refuge in the United States, where he accepted a position at Princeton University. From there, he used his fame to speak for peace and humanity. He warned the world about the dangers of hate and violence. And though his equation, E equals mc squared, later played a role in the development of the atomic bomb, Einstein himself was heartbroken by it. He said, "The release of atomic power has changed everything except our way of thinking." He spent the rest of his life urging nations to seek understanding, not war. He dreamed of a world united by knowledge and compassion. Even as he grew older, Einstein's curiosity never faded. He spent his final years searching for one ultimate truth, a single theory that could unite all the forces of nature into one elegant equation. He called it the unified field theory. He never completed it, but that didn't matter, because his true gift wasn't the answers he found, it was the questions he inspired. Students, scientists, dreamers, all around the world began to look at the universe differently because of him. He reminded us that imagination is more important than knowledge, because knowledge tells us what is, but imagination tells us what could be. That's the real beauty of the Albert Einstein story. It's not just science, it's the story of being human, of daring to dream beyond what's visible, of turning curiosity into discovery. As the world continued to change, so did Einstein's place within it. He was no longer just a physicist. He had become a thinker, a philosopher, a man whose ideas reached far beyond equations and experiments. He often said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. For him, the search for truth wasn't just about numbers, it was about understanding the harmony of existence. Even as he lived in America, he never stopped thinking of himself as a citizen of the world. Borders, flags, politics, none of it mattered to him as much as human unity. He believed knowledge belonged to everyone, not to one country or one race. This part of the Albert Einstein story teaches us something beautiful, that wisdom isn't about how much you know, but about how deeply you care. And that learning is not just about understanding English or science, it's about understanding life itself. So, as you continue your Learn English Through Story journey, remember this: the more you listen, the more you feel. The more you feel, the more you understand. At Princeton University, Einstein became more than a scientist. He became a mentor to generations. Students would see him walking the campus, hair wild, pipe in hand, lost in thought, sometimes smiling at a private joke only he understood. He was kind, approachable, and humble. He never tried to appear important, yet everyone around him felt his greatness. He often received letters from children asking him questions about space, time, or even homework, and he would reply personally. His handwriting was uneven, his words simple but full of kindness. Once, a little girl wrote to him saying she was struggling with math. Einstein replied, "Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I can assure you, mine are still greater." That was his charm, honest, warm, and human. He believed humor was a sign of intelligence. He believed simplicity was the ultimate sophistication. He also believed that education wasn't about memorizing facts, but training the mind to think. He said, "Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school." That line, even today, feels timeless. And as you're listening to this English listening practice, you're not just learning language, you're training your mind to think differently, just like Einstein did. The 1930s and 1940s were dark decades. War had spread across the world, and humanity was once again divided by hate. Einstein, who had escaped from Nazi Germany, watched in pain as his homeland turned into a nightmare. He spoke openly against fascism, discrimination, and violence. He used his fame to raise awareness about peace, equality, and justice. But there was one decision that haunted him deeply. In 1939, worried that Nazi scientists might create a powerful bomb, Einstein signed a letter to U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, urging the development of atomic research. That letter led to the Manhattan Project and eventually the atomic bomb. When Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed, Einstein was devastated. He spent the rest of his life promoting peace and nuclear disarmament. He said, "I made one great mistake in my life when I signed that letter." His voice trembled when he said those words because even a genius feels guilt, regret, and sorrow. That's what makes him human. In his speeches, he often reminded people that peace can never be achieved by force. It must come from understanding. He urged nations to unite under reason, not power. He said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." And those words still echo across generations. Even in his later years, Einstein's curiosity never faded. His hair turned white, his body slowed, but his mind was forever young. Every morning he would walk to his office at the Institute for Advanced Study, notebook in hand, pipe in mouth. He loved quiet mornings, the sound of birds, and the feeling of being lost in thought. He spent countless hours searching for the unified field theory, the idea that all forces in nature could be described by one elegant equation. He called it God's thoughts. He once said, "I want to know God's thoughts, the rest are details." But that equation, that ultimate truth, remained just out of reach. Still, he didn't stop. He kept trying, calculating, dreaming until his final days. When journalists asked him why he didn't retire, he smiled and said, "To stop learning is to start dying." Those simple words carry a powerful message, one that fits beautifully into your Learn English Through Story journey. Because learning is not just about lessons or exams. It's about staying curious, staying alive, staying awake to wonder. In April 1955, Einstein fell ill. Doctors advised surgery, but he refused. He said quietly, "It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go." On April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, Albert Einstein passed away peacefully in his sleep. No grand farewell, no noise, just silence. The same kind of silence he loved when he was a boy, holding that little compass, wondering about invisible forces. Before he died, he left behind a handwritten note with just a few words. "A calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness." Those were his final lessons: simplicity, humility, and peace. When his brain was later studied, scientists found nothing supernatural, no secret part that made him different, just a normal human brain that had dared to think differently. And maybe that's the real secret, not being born special, but daring to stay curious. Because that's what this Albert Einstein story truly teaches us. That genius is not a gift, it's a choice. A choice to imagine, to question, to keep learning. Even after his death, Einstein's name continues to shine brighter than ever before. His theories shape every corner of modern science, from GPS satellites to quantum mechanics. But beyond physics, his ideas about peace, kindness, and curiosity still guide the human spirit. In classrooms, his face hangs on walls. In stories, his quotes inspire millions. And in every curious heart that asks, why, his spirit lives on.
Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, but imagination encircles the world." And that, perhaps, is why we remember him not just as a scientist, but as a symbol of human possibility. So as you listen to this story, as part of your English listening practice, take his message with you. Be curious, be kind, be brave enough to dream. Because the next great discovery might come from someone just like you. Time passes. Generations change, but the name Albert Einstein remains, alive in every classroom, every lab, every curious mind. He became more than a person. He became an idea. The idea that imagination can move mountains, that curiosity can change the world, that one human being can redefine reality itself. Whenever someone dares to ask, "What if?" Einstein smiles from history. Whenever a student looks up at the stars and dreams, Einstein's light shines again. His story isn't just about science. It's about courage. It's about believing in your own mind, even when the world doubts you. And that's why, through this Learn English Through Story, you're not just practicing English, you're practicing Einstein's philosophy. To think differently, to stay curious, to never stop learning. Let's take a moment to breathe, to think. What can we learn from this incredible life? What can you take away from the Albert Einstein story today? Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." That curiosity led him to ideas no one had ever imagined. Knowledge can take you from point A to point B, but imagination can take you everywhere. Einstein failed many times, was rejected, doubted, even humiliated, but each failure brought him closer to truth. He said, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." Even when surrounded by war, Einstein spoke of love, peace, and understanding. He believed that compassion was more powerful than intelligence. Because the mind, like a muscle, grows only when used. And that's exactly what you're doing here. Listening, learning, improving your English naturally through story and emotion. This is more than English listening practice. It's life listening practice. It's a way to connect with history, wisdom, and humanity, all through words. Beyond the theories, beyond the fame, Einstein was simple. He loved music. The violin was his escape. He loved sailing, even though he was terrible at it. He loved laughter, tea, and long walks by the river. He was forgetful. Sometimes he forgot his socks, sometimes his keys. He wasn't perfect. And that's exactly why we love him. Because genius isn't about being flawless. It's about being real. He once said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value." Those words, simple and gentle, are like a mirror for all of us. What kind of person do you want to be?
Someone who chases success or someone who creates value? This Albert Einstein story reminds us that true greatness isn't measured in wealth, fame, or awards. It's measured in the lives you touch, the minds you inspire, the kindness you spread. Imagine Einstein today, in our modern world. He'd probably still have messy hair, still lose his notes, still forget what day it is. But he'd also be amazed. Satellites orbiting Earth using his equations, energy from stars, black holes confirmed by his math. He would smile and say, "I told you, imagination is everything." His dream of understanding the universe continues through scientists, students, and dreamers like you. Yes, you, the listener. Because every time you learn, question, and imagine, you become part of his legacy. You become the continuation of that same flame that burned in his heart. That's what Learn English Through Story is truly about. Not memorizing, but feeling. Not studying words, but living them. So, what have we learned from this journey? We've traveled from a little boy holding a compass to a man holding the secret of time and space. We've seen how curiosity defeated fear, how kindness conquered hate, and how ideas can outlive death. Einstein taught us that the universe isn't just around us, it's within us. He said, "Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better." So, look within. Ask questions. Be curious. Be humble. And never stop learning. Because every word you learn, every story you hear, every thought you dare to think, brings you closer to the genius inside you. This is not the end of the Albert Einstein story. It's just another beginning. For you, for me, for everyone who believes that knowledge and imagination can change the world. Before you go, close your eyes for a second. Think about something you dream of. A goal, a passion, a vision. Now remember what Einstein said. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. So go there. Let your imagination guide you. Let your curiosity lead the way. Because maybe one day, someone will tell your story, the story of how you believed, learned, and became more. Thank you for joining this journey, for listening, learning, and feeling every word of this English listening practice. You didn't just learn English today. You learned courage, creativity, and compassion, the same values that made Albert Einstein unforgettable. So if this story touched your heart,
If it made you think, if it helped you learn, then don't forget to show your love. Hit that like button, subscribe for more inspiring English stories, and share this Albert Einstein story with someone who loves learning. Because stories like this don't just teach English, they teach life. And remember, stay curious, stay kind, and keep learning through stories. Because somewhere, in every question you ask, Einstein still lives.